Three men just slapped my wife, and they have no idea who they're dealing with. Tactical vests, fake badges, claiming HOA enforcement authority, while slapping my schoolteacher wife across the face for recording them. The sound echoed through our quiet Florida neighborhood like a warning shot. 15 years of marriage, and I've never felt rage like this. Pure white-hot fury burning through my chest. Here's what these officers don't know. Some husbands are more dangerous than others. I stepped outside, and suddenly their confident swagger turned into something very different. Comment your country. You won't believe what happens next. Here's how this suburban nightmare started, on what should have been a perfectly normal Tuesday morning in our pristine Florida subdivision. You know the type of place I'm talking about, where palm trees sway exactly the right amount. Every lawn looks like obsessive-compulsive perfectionists manicured it, and the HOA notices arrive with the punctuality of German trains. My wife Julia is kneeling by our tulip bed, wearing this white cotton shirt that's already getting dirty from her morning gardening session, when she spots this bright yellow violation notice stuck to our fence like some kind of suburban scarlet letter. The Florida sun is fierce, even at 9 in the morning, casting these dancing palm shadows across our concrete driveway, while Julia reads this bureaucratic nonsense out loud. Fence height violation, 2 inches above regulation, flag display, unapproved military memorabilia. Compliance required within 72 hours or face escalated enforcement. I'm watching through our kitchen window, coffee mug in hand, thinking about how I survived 3 combat deployments in Afghanistan just to deal with homeowner association tyrants who measure fence heights with rulers and get triggered by American flags. Honestly, the enemy fighter had better manners than these people. At least insurgents told you up front they wanted to kill you, instead of hiding behind regulation handbooks and compliance violations. Julia starts recording on her iPhone because she's got those sharp teacher instincts that scream, "Document everything when dealing with bureaucratic jerks." Smart woman, my wife. 15 years of marriage to a military man teaches you to gather evidence before the shooting starts. That's when the amateur hour cavalry arrives, and I swear these guys look like they order their tactical gear from the clearance section of a Halloween costume website. 2 men stride across our lawn wearing vests that scream, "I shop at Army surplus stores but have never seen actual combat." The tall one, let's call him Vince, has this bouncer build, but his tactical vest's zipper is straining like it's about to explode from the pressure. His partner, Tony, is all muscle and attitude, wearing a badge that's crooked enough to make actual law enforcement officers cry with laughter. "Ma'am, stop recording enforcement action immediately," Vince shouts in this wannabe drill sergeant voice that probably works great on drunk college kids, but sounds ridiculous echoing across suburban lawns. Tony flexes his muscles for intimidation effect, while both of them swagger toward my wife like they're raiding a terrorist compound, instead of hassling a schoolteacher about fence regulations. Their patches say compliance, not police, which tells me everything I need to know about this discount security theater production. Julia keeps filming because she's not stupid. She recognizes evidence gathering when she sees it, and these idiots are providing enough material for a comedy special. "Sir, you need to comply with HOA regulations or face escalated consequences," Vince continues, stepping uncomfortably close to my wife. That's when my military training kicks into automatic mode. Assess the threat level, identify potential exits, calculate response options, and protect the primary asset, which in this case happens to be the woman I love more than life itself. Then it happens. Tony, this overly aggressive guy, swings his hand and slaps Julia hard across her face. The sound echoes across our quiet neighborhood like a gunshot. Smack! Sharp and vicious, and completely inexcusable. Her iPhone goes flying through the air, crashes onto our grass with the screen spider webbing, but the damn thing keeps recording because Apple makes tough products. Julia stumbles backward, hand instinctively going to her cheek, and I can already see the red handprint forming on her face like some kind of suburban scarlet letter. She doesn't cry. My wife's tougher than nails and twice as sharp, but her eyes go wide with shock because who the hell expects to get assaulted by fake cops on a Tuesday morning over fence measurements? That's the exact moment when something primitive and dangerous flips on in my brain. The same switch that kept me alive through 3 combat tours and made enemy fighters think twice about engaging American forces. The screen door slams like a gunshot as I step outside, and I swear the temperature drops 10 degrees just from my presence. I'm wearing a faded Marine Corps t-shirt and jeans, nothing special, but my entire posture shifts into something these suburban warriors have never encountered in their discount security careers. 38 years on this planet, 3 combat deployments where I trained in combat operations, and now I'm dealing with dollar store security guards who just committed assault on my wife in my own front yard. I'm a Navy SEAL, I say, voice level and calm like I'm discussing the weather. You just assaulted my wife. Bad decision. My hands hang loose at my sides, weight perfectly balanced, every muscle coiled like a compressed spring ready to explode into violence. These tactical costume idiots have absolutely no idea what they just awakened, but they're about to get a very educational demonstration in the difference between real military training and playing dress-up security guard. Stand down! Hands where I can see them! Last warning! The command voice comes out automatically, the same tone that stopped insurgents dead in their tracks overseas and made enemy combatants reconsider their life choices. But these morons think their tactical vests make them invincible, so Vince charges at me like some amateur mixed martial arts wannabe, while Tony starts swinging haymakers that telegraph from the next zip code. Here's the fundamental difference between actual combat training and suburban tough guy fantasies. Real violence is quick, efficient, and quick and effective when properly executed. I pivot left to avoid Vince's clumsy bull rush, and this genius trips over his own feet in his eagerness to tackle a trained killer. He tripped and hit the steps hard, leaving him bloodied and calling for help. Tony's still swinging like he's auditioning for some bar fight movie, so I duck his telegraphed right hook and simply step aside like a matador avoiding a particularly stupid bull. Gravity handles the rest of the work. He fell backward into the sprinkler system and couldn't speak clearly afterward. "I can't close my mouth!" He wails through a stream of drool that makes him look like a confused toddler. Meanwhile, Vince is rolling around on our lawn like he's been shot, holding his face and requesting emergency services. "You broke my nose," in a voice that cracks like he's going through puberty all over again. The best part? His tactical vest finally gives up the ghost, zipper bursting open to reveal a t-shirt underneath that says "World's Greatest Dad," which is absolutely hilarious considering his current career choices and life decisions. Tony's trying to communicate through his dislocated jaw, but every word comes out as gibberish. Or under arrest instead of "you're under arrest." Both these tough guys are crying now, clearly shaken and needing medical attention that's still shooting across the yard in perfectly timed intervals, creating little rainbows in the morning sunlight, like some kind of ironic commentary on suburban violence. I immediately pull out my phone and call 911, requesting both police and emergency medical services because that's what responsible adults do, even when dealing with idiots who assault their families on their own property. This is Chuck Morgan at 1523 Palmetto Drive. I need law enforcement and EMS for 2 injured individuals who just assaulted my wife during an illegal home invasion. While I'm coordinating with emergency services, I notice something very interesting lying in our grass. Vince's phone flew out of his pocket during his graceful introduction to our front steps, and the screen is still glowing with a text message notification. "Boss lady, use force if needed, -J." The timestamp shows this message arrived exactly 2 minutes before these clowns showed up at our door, which means someone ordered this assault with the precision of a military operation. Julia, God bless her strategic thinking, is still recording everything despite her swollen cheek, and she catches this critical evidence on video. That text message is going to be very important in the legal proceedings that are about to make Jennifer Allen's life extremely complicated. The neighborhood is coming alive now. Agnes from across the street is filming through her lace curtains. Carl from next door has emerged from his garage still holding a socket wrench. And Mrs. Rodriguez has stopped watering her garden to watch this suburban drama unfold. As sirens wail in the distance, and these 2 compliance officers continue their Academy Award-worthy performances of pain and regret, I'm standing there holding Vince's phone, looking at that text message and feeling a cold smile spread across my face. Julia approaches, gently touching her red cheek, but her eyes are bright with something that looks suspiciously like pride. "That's my husband," she says softly. And despite everything, I feel that familiar surge of love and protectiveness that's kept us strong through 15 years of military life and civilian challenges. But if Jennifer Allen ordered this assault through a text message sent exactly 2 minutes before her hired thugs attacked my wife on our own property, What else has she been planning that we haven't discovered yet? The investigation starts immediately because I'm not the kind of guy who sits around waiting for the system to work. I'm at my kitchen table at 0600 the next morning with my laptop, coffee, and a notepad full of license plate numbers. Julia's bruised cheek is a constant reminder of why we're doing this, and let me tell you, seeing your wife hurt puts a different kind of fuel in your tank. The morning sunlight streams through our window blinds, creating these prison bar shadows across the table, which feels oddly appropriate considering we're hunting down criminals. Ray Delgado shows up at my door around 7 a.m., and this man is exactly what you'd expect from a retired cop. Cargo shorts, Hawaiian shirt, and the kind of handshake that tells you he's seen some stuff. Jesus, Chuck, he says, eyeing Julia's swollen cheek. These idiots left more evidence than a bank robbery gone wrong. Ray's not just our neighbor. He's a former law enforcement officer and knows HOA regulations better than most lawyers. As an ex-cop, I can tell you that Community Compliance Group has a history of complaints. They're basically hired muscle disguised as legitimate enforcement. We spend the morning tracking down information like a couple of detectives working a case. The license plates lead us to Community Compliance Group, which has a website that looks like it was designed in and uses stock photos of tough guys that are obviously from Shutterstock. Their Yelp reviews are comedy gold. Showed up drunk to noise complaint, stole my sandwich during investigation, and my personal favorite, asked to use bathroom, clogged toilet. These are the professionals Jennifer hired to intimidate us? I've seen more competent security at mall food courts. Julia works her magic on Agnes Porter, our lonely neighbor across the street, who's been Jennifer's unofficial spy network for years. My wife has this teacher superpower where she can make anyone feel comfortable and important, so she invites Agnes over for tea and homemade cookies. Agnes lives in this time capsule house with doilies everywhere, 47 cat photos, and a Jesus portrait that seems to watch your every move. The woman is starving for human connection, which makes her perfect for intelligence gathering. Jennifer always brags about her special methods for dealing with problem neighbors, Agnes whispers, eyes darting toward Jennifer's house like she's afraid of being overheard. She has this composition notebook where she tracks everyone's debts and violations, calls it her control system. Jennifer told me that Carl Mitchell owes $2,500 in fines, and she's already filed a notice of intent to Leanne against his property. That poor man is terrified of losing his house. That's when Carl shows up at our front door, and I can read this guy like a book. His handshake is firm, but his palms are sweaty despite the cool morning air. He's wearing work boots and an oil-stained shirt, trying to project blue-collar confidence, but his eyes are red-rimmed like he hasn't slept in days. Chuck, man, I'm sorry about what happened yesterday. You did the right thing defending Julia, he says, but there's something off about his delivery. When Ray casually mentions lean procedures, Carl swallows hard, and his eyes dart to Jennifer's house. I'm sure it won't go that far, he stammers, and that little pause tells me everything I need to know. Ray's investigation skills come in handy as we dig deeper into the financial trail. Jennifer's been systematic about this, Chuck. She uses HOA dues to hire private enforcement, legal intimidation service, and compliance consulting. It's like she's built her own little police state right here in suburbia. He's got spreadsheets and bank records that show a pattern of payments to questionable companies, all approved by Jennifer's rubber-stamp board of directors, who are too scared or lazy to ask questions. The breakthrough comes when Ray casually mentions something that makes my military instincts ping. Funny thing happened yesterday. Got a friend request in our veteran group from some guy named Greg. Claims he knows Jennifer Allen's methods and wants to connect with local military families. Could be nothing, but he trails off. But we both know that in our line of work, there's no such thing as a coincidence. I fire up the laptop and start digging into public records. Marriage certificates, divorce filings, property transfers, all the paper trails that people forget exist in the digital age. Jennifer Allen married Gregory Lanham in 1998, divorced in 2021. Current address for Gregory Lanham, 1247 Pelican Bay Drive, which is exactly one subdivision over from us. Walking distance. Close enough to keep tabs on his ex-wife's activities, close enough to know her patterns, and definitely close enough to have opinions about her methods. Agnes provides more intelligence during her second tea session with Julia. I've heard Jennifer on phone calls with someone named Greg. Always angry conversations, always about money, and Those military types who think they're so tough. I assumed it was an old friend, but now that you mention it, she gets particularly nasty whenever his name comes up. Like he represents something she can't control. The picture starts coming together like pieces of a jigsaw puzzle. Jennifer's not just some power-hungry HOA president drunk on suburban authority. She's got history, baggage, and apparently an ex-husband who might know where all the bodies are buried. Carl's terrified about his house, Agnes is tired of being a spy, and somewhere across town, a man named Greg has been watching all of this unfold with the patience of someone who's been waiting for the right moment to act. Ray gets a phone call that afternoon from an unknown number. "Ray Delgado, this is Greg Lanham. I think we should discuss our mutual Jennifer problem." The voice is rough, weathered, like someone who's seen combat and lived to tell about it. "I've been tracking her activities for months, documenting everything. What happened to your neighbor's wife yesterday was the last straw. It's time someone stood up to her." That evening, I'm staring out our kitchen window toward Carl's house, where the lights are still on well past midnight. Julia comes up behind me and massages my shoulders, her teacher's intuition picking up on my tension. "What are you thinking about?" she asks softly. "I'm thinking about Greg Lanham, living one subdivision over, tracking his ex-wife's activities, reaching out to veterans, and apparently building some kind of case against Jennifer's reign of terror. But here's what keeps me awake. Greg knows Jennifer's methods well enough to predict her moves, lives close enough to monitor her activities, and he's been asking about her in veteran groups for weeks. So, is this mysterious ex-husband plotting his own revenge against Jennifer, or is he planning to help her finish what she started with my family? The next morning, Jennifer launches her psychological warfare campaign. And honestly, I've got to respect the strategy even while I hate the execution. Agnes shows up at the mailbox cluster like she's conducting some kind of CIA briefing, gathering her usual audience of morning gossip enthusiasts. I'm watching from my kitchen window, coffee in hand, as she reluctantly delivers Jennifer's poison. Jennifer's concerned about Chuck's episodes. She says military men sometimes have trouble adjusting to civilian life, that they might be dangerous to the community. Mrs. Rodriguez immediately crosses her arms and fires back. "That's complete nonsense, Agnes. I saw everything. Chuck warned those fake cops 3 times before defending himself." But I notice Mrs. Kim takes a small step backward, uncertainty creeping across her face, like Jennifer's doubt seeds are taking root. And that's exactly what this manipulative woman wants. To divide the community, make people question whether I'm a hero defending my family or some unhinged veteran who snapped over fence regulations. You know what gets me about this whole situation? Jennifer's actually pretty smart about psychological manipulation. She's not saying I'm crazy, she's just expressing concern about PTSD and letting people's imaginations fill in the blanks. It's the same kind of warfare tactics insurgents used overseas. Except instead of roadside bombs, she's using neighborhood gossip and manufactured fear. The difference is, the enemy fighters at least had the courtesy to shoot at you from the front. Agnes shows up at our door that afternoon, and I can see the moral wrestling match written all over her face. She's carrying a manila envelope with hands that shake like autumn leaves, eyes red and puffy from what looks like a sleepless night of conscience versus self-preservation. "I can't let Jennifer continue destroying people's lives," she says, and her voice carries more strength than I've ever heard from this lonely woman. "I've been helping her hurt innocent families for months, and I'm done being her spy." Inside that envelope is intelligence gold, smartphone photos of Jennifer's entire control system, each page of her composition notebook photographed with timestamp metadata that would make military intelligence officers proud. Agnes has been accidentally building evidence for weeks, documenting Jennifer's systematic targeting without even realizing she was creating the smoking gun that would bring down this suburban dictator. We spread the photos across our kitchen table like we're planning a military operation, and the scope of Jennifer's psychological warfare is breathtaking. Every single page is meticulously organized with dates, violation codes, fine amounts, and what Jennifer calls pressure points, which sounds way too much like interrogation terminology for my comfort. $500 for Mrs. Chen's purple mailbox, $300 for the Rodriguez family's flag being exactly 2 inches above regulation height, $75 for Ray's dog barking at 9:01 p.m. during official quiet hours. But the entry that makes my blood boil is Carl Mitchell, $2,500, deck permit violations plus accumulated late fees, leverage opportunity, lien filed. Subject shows high compliance potential under financial pressure. This isn't HOA management, folks. This is intelligence gathering on American citizens by someone who's watched too many spy movies and has way too much time on her hands. Julia looks over my shoulder at the photos and voices what we're both thinking. Chuck, this reads like a military target assessment. She's been tracking every neighbor's vulnerabilities, financial pressures, personal relationships, and family situations. This isn't about community regulations. This is about having leverage over everyone who might challenge her authority. The woman's turned our peaceful subdivision into her personal surveillance state, complete with files on everyone's weak points. The community meeting that evening is packed tighter than a military briefing room, and the energy feels different. Not the usual sleepy HOA gathering, but something that smells like actual democracy about to break out. Carl shows up and delivers his performance like he's auditioning for an Academy Award. He stands tall, makes eye contact with the crowd, and declares in a strong voice, "Chuck Morgan showed remarkable restraint yesterday. I've known soldiers, and Chuck is a good person. I fully support him in this situation." The applause is genuine and loud, but I'm watching Carl's body language while everyone else is clapping, and everything screams performance anxiety. His jaw twitches when he mentions my name, sweat beads on his forehead despite the community center's aggressive air conditioning, and his eyes keep darting to Jennifer's empty chair like he's afraid she might materialize out of thin air. This man is absolutely terrified, and not just about losing his house. Julia, bless her tactical mind, is recording the entire meeting on her phone because she's learned that with Jennifer's games, you document everything or you lose everything. She captures Carl's testimony, the community's supportive responses, and most importantly, the faces of neighbors who are finally seeing through Jennifer's manipulation campaign. Ray stands up and adds his law enforcement perspective. As a former police officer, I can tell you Chuck handled this textbook perfect. Clear warnings, appropriate force, immediate medical assistance for the aggressors. After the meeting, Carl approaches me with what looks like reluctant determination mixed with barely controlled terror. "Chuck, if you need me to testify or make a statement, I'm your guy, whatever it takes to stop Jennifer's nonsense." His handshake is firm, his voice sounds steady, but there's something in his eyes that reminds me of soldiers before dangerous missions. Fear mixed with resignation, like a man who's already made peace with terrible choices. Ray pulls me aside with news that changes the entire tactical situation. "Chuck, you need to see the last page Agnes photographed. The handwriting is completely different. Masculine, aggressive strokes that spell out. Phase 2, if legal fails, escalate pressure. GL backup plan ready." Those initials GL can only mean Gregory Lanham, Jennifer's supposedly dead ex-husband, and suddenly her confidence makes perfect sense. You want to know what keeps me awake at night? It's not the possibility of more legal battles, or even Jennifer's escalating harassment campaign. It's that look in Carl's eyes, the expression of a man who's been forced to choose between impossible options and knows he's going to disappoint everyone no matter what he does. I've seen that look on soldiers' faces right before they made decisions that would haunt them forever. That evening, Julia and I are cleaning up dinner dishes when she brings up the observation that's been bothering her teacher instincts all day. "Chuck, what if Carl can't really help us? What if he's too terrified to tell the truth when it matters?" She's got this ability to read people like open books, probably from years of spotting kids who are lying about homework or bullying. And she's picked up on the same signals that are making my military-trained gut scream warnings. Drop a comment if you've ever had to choose between helping someone or protecting yourself, because Carl's about to face exactly that decision. And based on the fear I saw in his eyes tonight, I'm not confident which version of him will show up when the pressure gets real. I'm standing at our kitchen window, looking toward Carl's house, where lights are burning well past midnight, thinking about the community meeting video that shows him clearly supporting me, praising my restraint, and promising to testify on my behalf. But Jennifer's got $2,500 in leverage hanging over his head like a financial sword of Damocles, and desperate people make unpredictable choices when their family's security is threatened. Carl's on video supporting me, Jennifer has legal documents that could destroy his family's financial future, and somewhere in the background, her mysterious ex-husband Greg is running backup plans that even Agnes's spy network hasn't uncovered. So, when Carl shows up to court tomorrow morning, which version will we see? The supportive neighbor who stood up at the community meeting, or the terrified homeowner who can't afford to lose his house over principle? Polk County Courthouse at 8 a.m. is exactly what you'd expect. Marble floors that echo every footstep, fluorescent lights buzzing overhead like angry wasps, and that particular smell of bureaucracy mixed with fear. I'm wearing my best Navy suit, the one I bought for military ceremonies, while Julia looks professional and determined in her red dress. We're here for a preliminary hearing on Jennifer's restraining order request, which is her legal response to getting her fake cops hospitalized. Claire, our lawyer, has organized her briefcase like a military operation, but I can see the concern in her eyes. That's when Carl walks through the courthouse doors, and my stomach drops like a brick. Instead of sitting with us or at least staying neutral, he walks straight to Jennifer's side of the courtroom. The symbolism hits everyone in the gallery immediately. Neighbors who showed up to support us start whispering, pointing, trying to understand why our most vocal supporter just switched teams. I lean over to Ray and whisper, "What the hell is this?" But Ray just shakes his head, his ex-cop instincts probably seeing this betrayal coming before I did. When Carl gets sworn in, his hands are shaking so badly that the bailiff has to steady the Bible. He won't meet my eyes, won't look at Julia, just stares at some fixed point on the courtroom wall, like he's trying to dissociate from what he's about to do. "Your Honor," he begins, his voice cracking with practiced emotion, "Chuck Morgan threatened me and my family. He said if I didn't publicly support him, he'd give me the same treatment he gave those security officers." The words hit the courtroom like a physical blow, gasps echoing off the marble walls. Carl continues his performance, and I have to admit, he's selling it well. My kids walk past his house every day going to school. When a Navy SEAL tells you what he's capable of, he lets the implication hang in the air, then adds the devastating personal touch. "Your Honor, I can't lose my house over $2,500 in fines. My children would have to change schools, leave their friends." When Mrs. Allen offered to resolve my debt in exchange for honest testimony about Mr. Morgan's threats, I knew I had to tell the truth. The courtroom erupts in whispers, and I can see the calculation in the judge's eyes. Here's a seemingly honest neighbor, admitting to financial pressure, claiming he's been intimidated by a trained killer. It's a perfect piece of theater, except for one small problem. Julia recorded the entire community meeting on her phone, and Carl's own words are about to destroy him. Ray stands up. He's representing himself as our legal advisor since he knows HOA law better than most attorneys, and addresses the court with the calm authority of someone who's testified hundreds of times. "Your Honor, I'd like to play a recording from our community meeting 3 days ago, timestamp 0327. The courtroom audio system crackles to life, and Carl's voice fills the room, clear as day. "Chuck Morgan showed remarkable restraint. I've known soldiers, and Chuck is a good person. I fully support him in this situation." You can actually watch Carl's face crumble, as his own words contradict everything he just testified. The man shrinks in the witness chair like he's trying to disappear into the wood grain, sweat pouring down his forehead despite the courthouse air conditioning. Ray follows up with Agnes's black book photographs, blown up to poster size, showing Carl's debt and Jennifer's note. Leverage opportunity, compliance expected. Judge Martinez leans forward, her glasses sliding down her nose as she processes the evidence. "Mr. Mitchell, this recording directly contradicts your testimony. Are you saying you lied at the community meeting, or are you lying now?" The question hangs in the air like a loaded weapon, and Carl finally breaks down completely. "I'm sorry," he whispers, tears starting to flow. "Mrs. Allen offered to forgive my debt if I testified that Chuck threatened me. I was going to lose my house, Your Honor, my kids' school district, their friends, everything." The judge's expression shifts from skepticism to disgust as she realizes she's witnessing witness tampering in real time. "This court takes perjury very seriously, Mr. Mitchell. However, given the financial coercion involved, I'm inclined toward leniency if you cooperate fully with the investigation." She turns her attention to Jennifer, who has been whispering urgently with her expensive lawyer throughout Carl's breakdown. "Mrs. Allen, this evidence suggests a pattern of intimidation and witness tampering that goes well beyond HOA regulations." Carl collapses completely in the witness chair, head in his hands, sobbing like a broken man. "Chuck, Julia, I'm so sorry. I never wanted to hurt you. I couldn't lose my house, my kids." He can't finish the sentence, but he doesn't need to. Everyone in that courtroom understands the impossible choice Jennifer forced on him. Betray your friends or watch your family lose their home. I lean forward, and despite everything, The lies, the betrayal, the attempt to paint me as a dangerous psychopath. I feel sorry for this broken man. Carl, I say quietly, I understand fear, but lies don't protect your family. They just create more problems for everyone. It's not forgiveness, not yet, but it's recognition that Jennifer's the real villain here, not the desperate father she manipulated into perjury. Judge Martinez orders a full investigation into witness tampering and maintains the restraining order status quo, which means Jennifer can't harass us, but the legal battle is far from over. As we file out of the courthouse, I watch Carl exit through a different door, his shoulders slumped, like a man carrying the weight of his choices. But something else catches my attention. Jennifer approaches Carl in the parking lot, puts her hand on his shoulder, and leans in close to whisper something in his ear. Whatever Jennifer says makes Carl's face go pale, and his shoulders slump even further than before. She's not comforting him or celebrating their legal victory. She's delivering some kind of message that clearly terrifies him more than losing his house. Ray notices it too, nudging me and nodding toward the parking lot drama. That woman's not done with Carl, he says grimly. She's got something else over him, something worse than money. Carl just destroyed his own credibility to save his house, admitted to perjury in open court, and probably ruined his relationships with half the neighborhood. So, what did Jennifer just whisper to him in that courthouse parking lot that made him look even more terrified than before he took the witness stand? Agnes shows up at our door the next morning, carrying a manila envelope and wearing the expression of someone who's made a life-changing decision. Her eyes are red from crying, but there's something different about her posture, straighter, more determined. Chuck, Julia, I'm completely done being Jennifer's spy, she says, voice stronger than I've ever heard it. Here's everything I've been documenting for months. Inside that envelope are comprehensive photographs of Jennifer's entire control system. The black book with full metadata, dates, receipt numbers, and most importantly, bank deposit slips showing HOA fund transfers to suspicious accounts. We spread Agnes's intelligence across our kitchen table like military analysts planning an operation, and the scope of Jennifer's corruption is staggering. She's been systematically targeting anyone who might challenge her authority, using HOA dues to fund private enforcement, legal intimidation services, and what she calls compliance consulting. Ray whistles low as he examines the financial records. Chuck, this woman's built her own little police state right here in suburbia. She's got dirt on everyone, leverage over half the neighborhood, and the financial resources to make people's lives hell. That's when my phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number, and the message makes my blood turn to ice. Your wife works at that school, right? Public places can be so unpredictable. Dash a friend. I show the screen to Julia, and I watch her teacher's protective instincts kick into overdrive. Her face goes pale, then red with anger. Someone just sent a concerning message about my workplace, Chuck. My students, my colleagues. She's already reaching for her phone to call the principal, to warn security, to do whatever it takes to protect those kids. But here's the thing about threats against schools. They cross a line that even suburban warfare shouldn't cross. I've dealt with insurgents who targeted civilians, and this feels exactly the same. Psychological terrorism designed to make us feel helpless and afraid. Julia's recording the threat message, screenshotting everything, because she's learned to document every piece of Jennifer's escalating campaign against our family. We're not just fighting for ourselves anymore, she says grimly. Now she's threatening innocent children. Ray takes one look at the school threat, and his ex-cop instincts go into full alert mode. This isn't random harassment, Chuck. This is specific intelligence about Julia's workplace, her schedule, her routine. Someone's been watching your wife, studying her patterns, gathering information for maximum psychological impact. He starts making calls to his contacts in local law enforcement because threatening schools brings federal attention. And Jennifer might have finally stepped over the line from civil harassment into criminal territory. The breakthrough comes when my phone rings that afternoon. Unknown number, rough voice that sounds like someone who's seen combat and lived to tell about it. Chuck Morgan, this is Greg Lanham. I think it's time we talked about our mutual Jennifer problem. I've been watching her escalate this situation for weeks, and after what happened in court yesterday with Carl, I can't stay silent anymore. The voice carries authority, like someone accustomed to making hard decisions under pressure. We meet at Denny's because it's a public, neutral territory where Jennifer's spy network can't easily monitor our conversation. Greg emerges from a gray pickup truck, and everything about him screams veteran. Weathered face, Marine Corps tattoo faded on his forearm, slight limp that suggests old combat injuries. His handshake is firm but brief, the greeting of someone who's learned not to trust easily. "You've got good instincts coming here," he says, sliding a manila folder across the greasy table. "Jennifer told everyone I died in a training accident. Easier than admitting she drove away another military man." The folder contains 15 years of evidence, bank statements, phone records, email printouts, and documentation of Jennifer's systematic campaign to control everyone around her. "Joint bank account she never bothered to close after our divorce," Greg explains, pointing to highlighted entries. $1,500 to Community Compliance Group, $800 to Private Investigation Services, $2,000 to Legal Intimidation Consulting, all funded with money I'm legally required to contribute as part of our divorce settlement. But the smoking gun is Greg's old phone, loaded with recorded conversations that make Jennifer's true nature crystal clear. He plays one recording, and Jennifer's drunk voice fills the greasy air of our Denny's booth. "Greg, you bastard. I'll destroy anyone who reminds me of you. Military types think they're so tough. I hired those compliance idiots to teach that SEAL's wife a lesson. She deserved it for filming my enforcement action." The words are slurred but unmistakably clear, a complete confession to conspiracy and assault. Greg's expression is grim as he explains the context. "She calls me every month when she's drunk. Always threats, always trying to maintain control even after our divorce. I started recording these calls 2 years ago when I realized she was using our shared finances to fund harassment campaigns against neighbors. What happened to Julia was the last straw. I couldn't let her hurt innocent people anymore." There's more evidence. Email chains showing Jennifer coordinating with private investigators. Financial records proving she's been diverting HOA funds for personal vendettas. And most damning of all, text message conversations where she discusses Phase 2 and Phase 3 operations against community members who challenge her authority. Greg slides another phone across the table, showing a recent text exchange that makes my stomach drop. "G. Time for Phase 3. You know what to do. -J. Chuck, there's something else you need to understand," Greg says, his voice dropping to barely above a whisper. "Phase 3 wasn't my idea. It was always hers. The school threat, the escalation beyond financial pressure and legal harassment, the targeting of your wife's workplace. Jennifer's been planning this for months. And based on this text message she sent me this morning, I think she's already started implementing whatever Phase 3 actually involves." The pieces start falling into place like a tactical briefing coming together. Jennifer's not just some power-hungry HOA president who got carried away with suburban authority. She's a woman with serious control issues, unlimited access to community funds, and a pattern of escalating harassment against anyone who represents the military independence she couldn't dominate in her marriage. Carl's betrayal wasn't just about his house. It was about proving she could break anyone's will if she applied enough pressure. Greg shows me the final piece of evidence, and it explains everything about Jennifer's confidence and Carl's terror in the courthouse parking lot. On his phone is a series of photographs. Carl meeting with Jennifer's private investigator, Carl signing documents in Jennifer's kitchen, Carl receiving what appears to be cash payments in exchange for compromising information about his neighbors. "She didn't just threaten foreclosure," Greg explains. "She got Carl to spy on everyone in the neighborhood, document personal information, and provide intelligence about family routines and vulnerabilities. That's why Carl looked so terrified after his testimony," I realize out loud. Jennifer didn't just have leverage over his house. She had evidence of him betraying every neighbor's privacy, every family's personal information. He wasn't just afraid of losing his home, he was afraid of everyone discovering he'd been Jennifer's intelligence asset for months. As we leave Denny's, Greg hands me his contact information and a USB drive containing copies of everything we've discussed. "Chuck, Jennifer's not done escalating. She's got resources, connections, and most importantly, she's got nothing left to lose now that the community's turning against her. Phase 3 might be worse than anything we've seen so far." He pauses at his truck, looking like a man carrying the weight of difficult decisions. "I should have stopped her years ago, but I was tired of fighting. Watching her hurt your family, it reminded me that sometimes you can't just walk away from bullies." That evening, Julia and I review all the evidence: assault videos, financial records, recorded confessions, bank statements, and most troubling of all, that school threat message that crossed every line of suburban warfare. We've got enough evidence to bury Jennifer legally, but the question remains, what exactly is Phase 3, and how do we stop something when we don't know what form it's going to take? Jennifer has a Phase 3 plan that scared even Greg, her ex-husband, who lived with her controlling behavior for 15 years, and she just activated it with a text message that assumes he'll help her implement whatever twisted scheme she's cooked up. The woman who ordered assault on our property, manipulated Carl into perjury, and now threatens elementary school children has moved beyond suburban harassment into territory that looks suspiciously like domestic terrorism. What could be worse than hiring fake cops to assault neighbors, bribing community members into false testimony, and threatening schools full of innocent children? And if Greg looks scared of Phase 3, what exactly has Jennifer planned that even her most intimate enemy considers too dangerous to ignore? The community center is packed like I've never seen it before, and I mean packed. We're talking standing room only, with neighbors lined up against the walls, because every single folding chair is occupied by someone who's finally had enough of Jennifer Allen's suburban dictatorship. Word has spread like wildfire about Carl's courthouse breakdown, Jennifer's financial manipulation scheme, and that school threat message that crossed every possible line of civilized warfare. The energy in this room doesn't feel like your typical sleepy HOA meeting, where people argue about lawn sprinkler schedules. This feels like actual democracy about to break out. Julia and I arrive early because military training teaches you to secure the terrain before the battle begins. But honestly, the electricity in the air is so thick you could cut it with a knife. These aren't just annoyed homeowners complaining about fence regulations anymore. These are pissed-off Americans who've discovered their neighbor turned their community into her personal police state, and they want blood. Well, metaphorical blood. We're still suburbanites after all. I take the podium and lay out our evidence like I'm briefing military leadership on an enemy threat assessment, because that's essentially what this is. First up, Julia's assault video plays on the big screen, and the room goes dead silent as everyone watches Jennifer's hired contractors assault a teacher on her own property for the crime of recording HOA violations. You can hear people gasp as they witness the assault on screen, followed by muttered curses as they watch me warn these fake cops 3 times before defending my family. Next come Agnes's black book photographs, blown up poster-sized so everyone can see Jennifer's systematic tracking of neighborhood pressure points and leverage opportunities in crystal-clear detail. The gasps start immediately as people recognize their own names, their own financial struggles, their own personal information that Jennifer's been collecting and weaponizing like some suburban intelligence operation. Mrs. Rodriguez jumps to her feet and shouts, "That manipulative woman fined me $300 for flag height while secretly tracking my divorce proceedings." Ray takes the microphone next and presents our financial evidence with the methodical precision of a police detective building an airtight criminal case. Ladies and gentlemen, Jennifer Allen has systematically diverted over $15,000 in HOA funds to pay for private enforcement, legal intimidation services, and surveillance operations against your own neighbors. She's been using your monthly dues to fund personal vendettas against anyone brave enough to question her authority. The projector screen shows bank transfers, payment receipts, and contract agreements that prove Jennifer turned community resources into her private army's funding mechanism. But the real bombshell, the evidence that turns this room from angry to absolutely furious, comes when I play Greg's recording of Jennifer's drunk confession. The community center falls so quiet you could hear a pin drop as Jennifer's slurred voice fills the room through our sound system. "I hired those compliance idiots to teach that SEAL's wife a lesson. Military types think they're so tough, but everyone breaks when you apply enough pressure." Her confession continues with details about Phase 2 operations, Carl's manipulation, and her plan to destroy anyone who reminds me of that military independence I couldn't control in my marriage. The reaction is immediate and visceral, like watching a dam burst. Neighbors jump to their feet, shouting questions and demands for immediate action. Mrs. Chen waves her fist in the air and yells, "She extorted $500 from me for a purple mailbox while planning to assault innocent families." Mr. Martinez, normally the quietest guy in our entire subdivision, stands up and declares in a voice shaking with rage, "This woman turned our peaceful community into her personal dictatorship." The energy has shifted from suburban politeness to righteous fury, and Jennifer's reign of terror is about to end in spectacular fashion. Mrs. Patterson, our HOA vice president who's been quietly documenting Jennifer's overreach for months, takes the microphone and calls for order, with the authority of someone who actually understands parliamentary procedure. Per our community bylaws, any motion supported by more than 20% of homeowners requires immediate consideration by this assembly. I hereby call for a vote of no confidence in Jennifer Allen as HOA president. The motion gets seconded immediately, and hands shoot up around the room like popcorn kernels exploding. The vote count is absolutely devastating. 52 votes for Jennifer's removal, 1 abstention from the guy who just moved in last week and doesn't know what's happening, and exactly 1 vote against, which can only be Jennifer's own pathetic attempt to save herself. But here's where this whole situation gets really interesting, because Jennifer's not going down without a fight. She grabs the microphone like she's staging her own personal coup, and whatever mask of suburban respectability she's been wearing for years finally disintegrates completely. "You people have absolutely no idea what you're doing," she screams, voice echoing off the community center walls with increasing desperation and hysteria. "I built this community. I made it safe and prosperous. Without my leadership, property values will crash and crime will skyrocket through the roof." Jennifer's voice rises to near maniacal levels as the security volunteers start moving toward the podium. "You need me to maintain order and discipline. You need someone strong enough to make the hard decisions." But she's not finished with her meltdown, not by a long shot. As they escort her toward the exit, she breaks free from their grip and whirls around to face the packed room with wild eyes and a voice full of pure venom. "You think removing me from office solves anything? Chuck Morgan, you have absolutely no idea what's coming your way, what I've already set in motion." The evil smile that spreads across her face sends literal chills through the entire room. Phase 3 doesn't need HOA authority to operate. I've got resources you can't imagine, and connections that go far beyond this pathetic little suburban community. The community center erupts into complete chaos as Jennifer's final threat sinks into everyone's consciousness. Neighbors are shouting questions, demanding explanations, and wondering what the hell Phase 3 could possibly involve that doesn't require official HOA power to implement. Ray immediately starts organizing security protocols for families with children, while other neighbors begin coordinating communication networks to share information about any suspicious activities around the neighborhood. Mrs. Patterson bangs her gavel repeatedly and calls for order to address the immediate practical concerns. Per HOA Bylaw Section 7.4, the board may appoint an interim president until our next scheduled election. The nomination process is immediate and unanimous. Chuck Morgan for interim president, with Agnes nominated as community liaison and Ray as security coordinator. The applause is thunderous and sustained, but there's an underlying tension because everyone in this room knows Jennifer's threats aren't empty suburban posturing. As neighbors start filing out of the community center, still buzzing with victory and underlying worry, my phone buzzes with a text message that makes my blood freeze in my veins. "Your wife teaches at Sunset Elementary, right? Kids are so vulnerable at 3:15 dismissal. Dash a friend." I show the message to Julia and Ray, and we all realize simultaneously that Jennifer's Phase 3 isn't some future threat. It's already begun. The community celebration atmosphere evaporates instantly as word spreads about the school threat message. Community members immediately start coordinating with local authorities about security concerns, coordinating emergency pickup changes, and sharing information about potential security concerns. Agnes approaches us with tears streaming down her face. "I'm so sorry I helped her gather information about everyone's daily routines and schedules. I never thought she'd target innocent children." Ray's police instincts kick into overdrive as he starts organizing neighborhood security protocols with military efficiency. "This isn't random harassment anymore, people," he explains to the increasingly worried crowd. "Threatening schools brings federal law enforcement attention, and Jennifer might have just crossed the line from civil harassment into domestic terrorism territory. We need to document everything, coordinate with authorities, and protect our families while the system investigates." That's when Greg appears at the community center as we're locking up, his weathered face grim with news none of us wants to hear. "Chuck, I need to show you something," he says, pulling out his phone with hands that shake slightly. "Jennifer sent me another message an hour ago, and it's worse than anything we've discussed so far." The text message is short, but absolutely terrifying. "G, Phase 3 activated. School security is weaker than they think. Remember our discussion about maximum impact scenarios. This ends tomorrow. J. Comment below what you think Jennifer's Phase 3 could be, because based on her access to private investigators, her detailed knowledge of neighborhood routines, and her obvious willingness to target schools full of innocent children, some of your guesses might be frighteningly accurate. Jennifer's officially out of power, but someone just threatened Julia's school with specific knowledge of dismissal times and security vulnerabilities, and she's activated Phase 3, which apparently doesn't need HOA authority to operate and involves resources and connections that go beyond suburban politics. Who is Jennifer's final weapon, and how do we protect an entire elementary school from someone who's clearly lost all moral boundaries? The courthouse is packed like a small-town murder trial, with local news cameras in the back row and neighbors filling every available seat. Word has spread beyond our subdivision about the HOA president who hired fake cops, manipulated testimony, and threatened elementary schools. I'm wearing the same navy suit, but today it feels like armor rather than formal wear. Julia's red dress has become her power outfit, a symbol of strength rather than victimization. Ray takes the lead in presenting our evidence, and his police experience shows in every word. Your Honor, we have 3 smoking guns that prove a pattern of escalating harassment and intimidation. First, Julia's assault video plays on the courtroom monitors, showing the clear slap, my warnings, and those fake compliance patches. Second, Agnes's Black Book documentation with metadata proving Jennifer's systematic targeting of neighbors based on their vulnerabilities. Third, and most damning, Greg's recording of Jennifer's drunk confession, where she admits to ordering the assault. Greg takes the witness stand with the bearing of someone who's testified in military tribunals and survived much worse than suburban courtroom drama. Your Honor, I was married to Jennifer Allen for 15 years, and this pattern of intimidation, financial manipulation, and escalating harassment isn't new. It's who she is when challenged. She's dangerous because she combines intelligence with a complete lack of moral boundaries. His testimony carries the weight of someone who lived through Jennifer's psychological warfare firsthand. The drunk recording plays through the courtroom speakers, and Jennifer's slurred voice confesses to everything. I hired those compliance idiots to teach that SEAL's wife a lesson. Military types think they're so tough, but everyone breaks when you apply enough pressure. The confession continues with details about Carl's manipulation, the financial leverage, and her Phase 3 plans that don't require HOA authority. Several jurors lean forward, taking notes, clearly understanding they're hearing evidence of a genuine criminal conspiracy. Jennifer's expensive lawyer tries damage control, but there's no defending a recorded confession, combined with financial evidence and witness testimony. When Jennifer takes the stand against legal advice, her mask completely disintegrates. Your Honor, I was protecting community property values. Chuck Morgan represents everything wrong with military entitlement. He thinks his service gives him the right to ignore community standards. Her voice rises with each word, revealing the underlying hatred that's driven this entire campaign. Ray's cross-examination destroys any remaining credibility Jennifer might have maintained. Mrs. Allen, afraid people don't hire assault teams, he says, holding up bank transfer records. They don't threaten elementary schools, he continues, displaying the school threat message. And they don't record drunk confessions, admitting to conspiracy and witness tampering. Jennifer has no coherent responses, just increasingly desperate attempts to justify the unjustifiable. The breakthrough comes when the bailiff approaches the judge's bench with an urgent note mid-proceedings. Judge Martinez reads the document, her expression shifting from professional neutrality to obvious shock. Mrs. Allen, this court has just been informed that the anonymous threat message to Sunset Elementary School was traced to your personal cell phone through digital forensics. This changes the severity of charges significantly. Jennifer's complete breakdown is spectacular and terrifying. That wasn't me. I didn't send any school threats. Someone's setting me up. She's screaming now, struggling against the bailiff's restraining hands. Greg! Greg! You did this to me. You're framing me to get revenge. But Greg just shakes his head sadly, and everyone in the courtroom can see that Jennifer's accusations make no sense given the evidence timeline. Judge Martinez delivers the verdict with the gravity of someone who's seen genuine evil disguised as suburban authority. Mrs. Allen, this court finds you guilty of harassment, intimidation, assault by proxy, witness tampering, and making terroristic threats against educational institutions. Sentence: 18 months probation with electronic monitoring $8,000 restitution, 200 hours community service, mandatory mental health evaluation, and lifetime ban from any homeowner association position. Outside the courthouse, Ray pulls me aside with a confession that explains everything about Jennifer's final downfall. "Chuck, I need to tell you something about that school threat message," he says, looking slightly uncomfortable. "After Jennifer's Phase 3 text to Greg, I used her confiscated phone to send that message to your phone. Sometimes justice needs a little push, and I wanted to ensure she faced consequences for threatening children, even if she hadn't acted on it yet." I stare at Ray for a long moment, processing this revelation. Then a slow smile spreads across my face. "Ray, remind me never to get on your bad side," I say, and we both start laughing. The manipulation feels poetic rather than wrong. Jennifer spent months using psychological warfare against innocent families, and Ray simply gave her a taste of her own medicine while ensuring she faced appropriate legal consequences. The community celebration that evening is everything a neighborhood victory should be. I'm grilling burgers in our backyard while Julia organizes games for the kids. Agnes is actually laughing with real friends for the first time in years. And even Carl shows up to apologize and ask about running for board secretary. "I want to make this right, Chuck. Help you build something better than what Jennifer created." His handshake is honest now, without the fear and desperation that drove his earlier choices. Jennifer's house sits dark with a "sold" sign already planted in the front yard. She's moved to an apartment across town, but the electronic monitoring ankle bracelet ensures she can't come within 500 yards of our neighborhood. The restraining orders, mental health requirements, and community service sentence mean she'll be dealing with consequences for her actions for months to come. Julia and I end the evening on our front porch, watching the sunset paint the sky golden orange while our neighbors' children play safely in yards that no longer feel like surveillance zones. The same sprinkler system that helped defeat Jennifer's fake cops now creates little rainbows in the evening mist. And our American flag flies at exactly the right height, not because regulations require it, but because it represents the freedom we fought to protect. "Think we'll ever have normal suburban drama again?" Julia asks, snuggling against my shoulder. "You know, arguments about lawn sprinkler schedules, or whose dog is barking too much." I chuckle and kiss the top of her head. "Baby, with neighbors like ours, there's never going to be a dull moment. But at least now, our drama will be honest drama, not psychological warfare disguised as community management. Justice served, community healed, and Jennifer Allen is facing real consequences for turning suburban life into her personal dictatorship. But next week, new neighbors are moving into Jennifer's old house, and based on the moving truck full of security cameras and private property signs, they might have their own interesting secrets. That's another story for another day here on Echo Stories. If this tale of suburban justice got your blood pumping, smash that like button and let me know in the comments what your wildest neighborhood drama has been. Until next time, this is Echo Stories saying goodbye. And remember, sometimes the quiet suburbs hide the loudest secrets.